Morning, everybody. I'll keep this really short and brief because I know that everybody's looking forward to getting to the meat of the program. And we have some amazing speakers, as you guys have probably seen, with some really interesting stories to tell. But regardless of that, I wanted to tell you guys what I find to be most important about today, and that's actually all of you sitting here. And in order to explain that, I'm going to tell a story about how the HHS Buyers Club actually came to exist, because it'll kind of explain what I mean. About a year and a half ago, when we launched healthcare.gov, you all know what happened with that. One of the really interesting things to me was that it started a national conversation around, of all things, IT procurement in the federal government. Not typically the sexiest topic that you see reported on frequently, but it became a relatively big conversation. And a piece of that was something that I saw kind of come across the transom was a report by an organization called the Stanish Group, which basically said that 94% of all federal IT projects over $10 million fails. And they broke that down and they said 40% of those projects fail because they just never launch. They just, people build and build and build and then nothing happens. And the other 54% fail because they're either late, over budget, or they don't do what they said that they were going to do when they ended up launching. Now, personally, I think that 94% number might be a little high. I think you should probably take that with a grain of salt. But even if that number is 70% or 60% or 50%, I still think that there's a problem. That number should actually be asymptotically approaching zero, right? We should be able to implement technology today in a way that works across the board in a repeatable fashion. So we started thinking about this and trying to figure out at the Idea Lab, is there any way that we could bring some new thinking into this universe to try to change the way that these things happen? At the same time, Tom actually just held up that document. We got a draft of this document, this innovative contracting playbook that Tom's team at OSTP and Ann's team at OFPP were collaborating on to put together these case studies of innovative procurements. And I read this draft and I thought, wow, this is like the best thing I've ever seen the White House put out in my time in government. It was, and I'm not just saying that because you guys are sitting here. I actually really thought this was a phenomenal document because it actually went through and listed all of these really interesting ways that procurements could happen with case studies that were totally legit under the FAR that everybody could participate in. The other thing that occurred to me as I read it was that, unfortunately, it was a document that nobody was going to read because even if, and I've seen this before with docs that come out from the White House or from even HHS or other parts of the organization that are sort of meant to be instructive and interesting pieces of documentation. It's just, everybody here is busy, right? You guys all have day jobs. You're buried under mounds of procurements and other things that you're working on. And the question is, how do you take the time to digest a 60-page document and not just digest it, but put it into action? So what we thought was, all right, what if we took this amazing piece of work that had come out and kind of translated it into materials and artifacts and case studies and things that would be relevant but also easy to implement for people that were busy, that had a million things to do every single second of the day. And that was really the birth of the Buyers Club. Now, we didn't really know anything about procurement, the details of it anyway. And so we figured, all right, in order to make this work, we got to go find a contracting officer. So I basically thought the best way to do that would be to use some tools that we had available. We, a few years ago, implemented across HHS an instance of Yammer, which is, for those of you who don't know, sort of a professional networking site. Think about it like Facebook for internal use cases. And so I posted a message on this Yammer site and said, hey, is there any contracting officer out there who wants to push the envelope, thinks about things interestingly, wants to try new stuff, et cetera? And Mark immediately responded and said, yeah, that's me. I'm one of those guys. And so Mark was at CDC at the time down in Atlanta. Next time I went down to Atlanta, we met up. And it turned out that he was right there with us in terms of what he was trying to do, what he wanted to get done, and how he could take some of these things and potentially turn them into useful artifacts for the community at large. One of the interesting things, though, that happened as I was talking to Mark about sort of the challenges in procurement is that I realized that it wasn't just the procurement process. I'd always thought that it was sort of like, the procurement piece that was the problem, right? We just weren't buying things in a smart way. But as I was talking to Mark, what I realized is that the problem was actually much broader than that. And it was really more about the fact that the entire acquisition process is really siloed and segmented. You get program managers, or people who are responsible for soliciting something, developing a set of requirements, developing a solicitation, maybe with some input, maybe without some input from the contracting side. That gets tossed over the wall to a contracting person who has a clock that starts ticking. And so their clock, runs out after 60 days or something. They have to get an acquisition done. And then when it's done, it gets tossed back over the wall to the program side in order to have the implementation actually executed and done. And, lawyers are involved in some pieces of that, but they pop in and out. They aren't really focused on the overall outcome. Tom mentioned the word incentives, and if you think about that process, what it means is that everybody's incentives are actually different, right? The program is trying to implement a technology or a piece of work that delivers a certain outcome at the end of the day. The contracting side is just trying to get the contract done in the right amount of time for the best cost, et cetera. The lawyers are trying to be lawyers, right? They're trying to make sure that things happen legally. But if you think about it, in a lot of ways, this is a lot like the agile development world, right? One of the things we've realized in agile development is that if we get all of the stakeholders in a process together from day one and focus them on a single outcome and build things modularly and quickly, we actually will get better results at the end of the day. And so we started thinking about this in terms of procurement. What if we could get the program side, the business side, and the contracting side, and the legal side, and everybody else who's part of this process to be together in it from day one with incentives that are all aligned, not to get their specific piece done, but to deliver a better outcome at the end of the day. And to me, that's what this Buyers Club thing is really all about. It's about you guys. It's about everybody in this room and everybody, frankly, who's not in this room that needs to be in this room, getting together from day one, using these artifacts, using these tools, leveraging the air cover that we and the White House can provide in order to try some of these things, bringing everybody together to ask questions, to get answers, to be a support group in a lot of ways, and actually getting things done. So that's sort of my charge to you for today and going forward, is to find your colleagues who are part of these processes, get them involved in this group, show them that there are different ways of doing things, and that if we all work together from day one, as opposed to keeping these silos apart, we're going to get better results across the board. And I do think we can have that number asymptotically approach zero in terms of failed implementations. I really think we can do this much, much better, and you guys are a start of that. So thank you very much for attending this. Mark, thank you. Thank you guys for putting this stuff together. I look forward to hearing these presentations, and good luck with everything. Best luck.